I'm Sherilyn Skolnicki, and this is Brilliant Balance, the show for working women who are ready to shine. Each week, I bring you ideas, inspiration, and insight on balance, business, and getting it all done gracefully. You ready? Let's be brilliant. This is episode 265 of the Brilliant Balance podcast. And today we're talking about hosting guests and some ideas from a hospitality enthusiast. All right, my friends, it is hosting season. I know that lots of us are going to have guests either for the day, for one of the upcoming holidays, or maybe even overnight or for a series of nights. And I know that some of us really shudder at the thought of opening our homes to other people, especially if it extends beyond just a day. And I am not really in that camp. I would consider myself a hospitality enthusiast. So I thought it would be helpful maybe to share some ideas about why I find hospitality so appealing, the idea of opening my home to other people. And maybe there's something in here that will inspire you if you feel a little nervous about doing that. Or if you love it, then you can just geek out with me on these ideas and see if there are a few tips in here that you can pick up for yourself. So just a little trip down memory lane. I think that I come by this predisposition for hospitality really honestly. My mother is a just famously good hostess. I mean, I think that from the time I was very, very young, everyone that I knew who had an invitation to our home, whether it was for a meal or for a celebration or for an extended stay, just really knew what a treat that was going to be. My mom loves loving on people in that way. And so I think I saw that. And I saw not only the experience that our guests were having, but also the experience that she was having, the joy that it brought to her to know that people were coming, the sort of hustle and bustle of the anticipation and preparation and thinking about what she wanted to serve and all the special touches. So I know that I credit my love for this to her, because she definitely taught me the art of hospitality from a very young age and showed me what a joy it could be. So much so that when I went to college, my degree is in hospitality administration. So at Cornell, they have a part of their business school called the hotel school. And really, you study the art of hospitality through a business lens. But I think no one really goes there who doesn't have that fire in the belly, as one of our early professors called it, that real heart for hosting and creating experiences for other people that make them feel special and celebrated and cared for. And so that sort of seeped further into my DNA in college. And I can remember even as a single person with, very little money in a tiny apartment, really wanting to open that up to my friends in Atlanta, where I was living at the time. In fact, one of the first things that my now husband ever attended at my house was an Easter brunch. I had like a whole bunch of people over for Easter and did this full brunch for a group of friends. And, I can remember hosting Thanksgiving dinners and just like really enjoying bringing people into first my apartment and then the home that I had in Atlanta, even when it was just me, available to host. And these days, it's my favorite thing, whether it's hosting a group of my children's friends for a sleepover or Halloween or whatever they're into, or having family or friends come into town for the weekend. It's just it lights me up to know that I can open our home to people and take care of them. And so from that energy, from the energy of an enthusiast for this, I also recognize that a lot of people get really freaked out about opening their home to others. And some of what I hear is, well, listen, my home is never going to be ready. It's not organized enough or clean enough, or I haven't decorated well enough. I don't feel like it's equipped to host people. Lots of times people will talk about cooking. Like I'm just overwhelmed by the idea of having to feed everyone. I don't know how to do that. Or I think for some people, it feels like an invasion of privacy. It's a lot to have people around and kind of underfoot for some length of time. But because I believe so deeply that hospitality really blesses you as the host and also the guest, I want to share these ideas with you and see if it's something that you can create a little bit more ease around and have some fun with the experience. So I put together a few ideas. There's 6 things that I want to share with you in this episode about things that you can do as a host to make this experience really a great one, both for you and for your guests. First thing is to remember that the focus is on them and not on you. I think a lot of times when we start contemplating hosting something, we feel like it's a performance, like we're going to be evaluated for our taste, right? For our level of order or cleanliness or how well we can cook or what the cocktails are like. And the reality is that what we want to be focused on is creating an experience for the people who are visiting that they will remember, that's really special for them. And that is something that gets you out of your own head and into kind of an empathetic perspective, right? Thinking with the other person in mind through their perspective. Because the truth is, different guests will probably want different things from you or from the experience. Let's say that you're having people in town for the weekend and they are relatively new parents. They just might want someone to hold that baby for a while, right? And they might want to be able to sleep in and know that you're willing to take that baby for a few hours. Or they might really be craving adult conversation where they can just sit and talk after they've put the baby to bed because it's too hard to go get a babysitter in this stage, right? Contrast that with if you have a group of younger guests coming who might really be interested in exploring your city and wanting to know where are some great restaurants and where are places that they can go out. Like very different expectations around what kinds of activities might be appropriate to build into the experience. So I always like to think about who's coming and what might they need in this chapter of their life, or what would they love, right? What would really make them feel good? And that helps me not focus on how things look or what they'll think of me, right? Because I'm really focused on creating that experience for them. So that simple shift in perspective from thinking about yourself and how everything's going to be judged or evaluated to thinking about it's really like a gift that you're giving to this person. It's an experience that you're creating on their behalf so that they don't have to, can really make a difference. Second thing that I think is really important and helpful is to have a plan that is largely executed in advance so that you can be really present when your guests arrive. So we've all been to places, and we've all been the person probably hosting, where the host is kind of frantically doing things to continue to be ready for like the next meal or the next event. And they look kind of stressed out, right? And that is not the vibe that we're trying to create for our guests. What our guests really want is time with us. So I remember talking to my mom about this years ago because I think there's been an evolution in hosting, and telling her that I really thought the key was how much can be done in advance so that there's very little food preparation or other kind of preparation happening while the guests are there. Like it's fun sometimes if you love to cook to sort of do a multi-course meal with sauces that have to be finished at the last minute and everything's plated and gorgeous. But that can kind of turn your kitchen into a whirlwind, and then you're not enjoying a cocktail with your guests while something is like simmering on the stove or in the oven, right? So I think these days about what can I do in advance, particularly as it relates to food, so that when the guests are there, my focus is really on making them feel welcome and connected with, instead of like I'm putting on a big performance for them. So the food choices that I make are things where most of it can be fully ready before anyone has even set foot in the door, or it can be sort of half prepped so that there's a simplified cooking event happening in the kitchen. Now, there's exceptions to this, right? Thanksgiving is a pretty notable exception. And some big holiday meals that sort of are all about the food are different because then people are often rolling up their sleeves and participating in the process. But if you're thinking about maybe having guests in town for an entire weekend and how many times you're feeding them, doing some things to make that simpler can really make a big difference in just your demeanor. And also like how many times you have to clean up the kitchen, right? So having a plan in advance where you've sort of thought things through so that you can be really present and available to them as a companion is sort of the vibe that we're looking for. Okay, my friends, I have some big news for you today. After years of dreaming about it and saying, how great would it be to have our very own Brilliant Balance boutique, we did it. And the online doors are open. So if you love the podcast and you'd love to start your day with a Brilliant Balance mug, or add a little inspo to your office art, or cozy up in a super soft hoodie and a hat for those late to the bus stop mornings, head over to brilliant-balance.com/shop and choose something that will remind you that you are brilliant because you are. And then I want to see all the pictures of you with your new goodies. So tag me on social media at brilliant_balance when it arrives. That's brilliant-balance.com/shop. Go have some fun. All right. The third thing is to think about a welcome ritual, some sort of ritual that marks their arrival so that they feel greeted. So a couple of ideas, and I think this one's probably mandatory, is just offering a welcome beverage and snack. You know, you just never know the last time that these travelers will have eaten. Did they eat a meal? Did they just, graze while they were in the car or on the airplane? So having something where as they're coming into your home, there's a snack available to them, there's a welcome beverage available, which doesn't necessarily mean alcoholic, just something that is there for them when they come in. And then essentially you want to keep offering that at intervals throughout their stay. But the initial ritual of them coming in and being greeted with something to eat and drink, also being clear about where they can stow their belongings. I think otherwise people tend to just drop their stuff all over whatever room they walk into. And then there's this awkwardness of trying to get it to the right places. So sort of guiding them like, hey, why don't you put your things in this room? This is where you'll be staying. And then you can, access it anytime you want. Or here's the family foyer where we keep all of our backpacks and handbags, and you're welcome to put your things in there. And they're really easily accessible from the kitchen. Just gently guiding them to where to put their things so that it's not spread out all over the area you're going to be socializing in can be helpful. And then at some point in that first hour or so of their arrival, sharing a little bit with them about the plan or the schedule or the family rhythm that they are arriving into. Most guests don't want to impose on their hosts, but so they're a little afraid to ask, like, hey, what are we doing? Or what does our schedule look like? Or when do people go to bed and get up? So if you can share just gently an outline, a little perspective about what's going to be going on around them during their stay. Things like, hey, this child has a sports practice, and so we're going to scoot over to drop her off at this time and she'll be back at this other time. Or this is what we had in mind for this evening. How does this sound to you? And, is there anything here that we need to adjust or be mindful of in your schedule? It's possible that people visiting have a conference call that they need to take, or they have other friends who live in the area that they'd like to see at some point during their stay. So kind of getting on the same page about the plan, the schedule, the rhythm can be helpful as they're arriving and sort of settling in. All right. Fourth idea is related to that schedule, which is to give people some space. I think it's possible that when we know we're hosting, we get so worried that they're not going to have enough fun that we sort of overdo it on the scheduling. And we have them, running this marathon schedule of different places to go visit and things to do. And we're taking them out in the car and bringing them back home. And it kind of starts to feel like they're in this relay race if we're not careful. So I like to create some pockets where there's some downtime or even some alone time, right? It's a lot to bring a couple of families together for an extended period of time. And so it can be really healthy and helpful to let everyone sort of go to their own corners for a while and just be treated to the idea of like, it's quiet and you're out of your normal element. Maybe they'll want to take a nap. Maybe they want to be outside and read a book. Maybe they want to enjoy a space in your home that they've really kind of fallen in love with and they want to find a nook and hang out there for a while. That idea of giving them some space to just get regrouped is particularly important if you know you're hosting an introvert, right? If one or more of the family members is a little more introverted, they're really going to need that downtime or that alone time to get regrouped. So I'm always saying to people, even when you're the guest, it's perfectly acceptable to say like, hey, I'm going to step away for a little bit, or I need to be in my room for a little while. And just even if they're in there reading a book or sitting with a magazine or journaling, like taking a nap, it can be very calming to have that little bit of time away from the bustle of a big group scene. Okay. So for you as the host, if you're careful not to overschedule the days, just to be clear about timelines, like here's kind of the dot to dot of our schedule. This is how we're going to string things together. And I've left some downtime on Saturday afternoon or Sunday afternoon that, it's whatever you'd like to do. And if there's anything I can do to support that or help you find something, I'm happy to do that. Okay. I think what also goes along with this, giving people some space, is understanding and honoring their schedule. Are they a night owl and they want to know how to work the remote control so they can stay up late and watch a movie or a game? Or are they an early bird and they really want to be able to tuck in early and then maybe get up in the quiet of dawn and have a little bit of time to themselves with a cup of coffee or tea before the rest of the house is up? So honoring those rhythms and being clear about yours, the rhythms of your household that they're stepping into. Like, hey, everyone here is up at 5 is going to feel really different to a guest who's accustomed to sleeping until later in the morning. So sharing that information up front and then giving them some space to do what they need to do is really generous as a host. And an idea that goes along with that I absolutely love is my 5th idea for you, which is to create what I think of as self-serve stations. So if you can think about your home and all the areas they're going to have access to, there are some places where giving your guest an opportunity to take care of their own needs can be really of help to you because you're not worried about, did I ask them often enough if they need anything? And really helpful to them because it gives them a little bit of control over their experience. So a simple thing like putting some water and drinking glasses in their room on the nightstand. Maybe a stack of curated magazines or books that you think they might enjoy that can be in their room or in a place where they're going to be spending some time. Having like extra blankets or throws or pillows that are easy for them to get to make themselves a little bit more comfortable, whether that's in bed at night or even like on a sofa or in a chair that they're going to be spending time in. You know how when you're at home, you kind of have your favorite stuff that you love to cozy up with. And so making that available for them to find their own version of that in your home is really hospitable. I love the idea of them having access to a coffee maker, either of their own. I remember vividly staying with one of my dear girlfriends, and in the guest bathroom, she had set up a small Keurig with a few, K-cups and like those little individual creamers. And it was such a lovely touch that even if we were up really early in the morning and wanted to have that coffee before the rest of the household was up, we were able to do that on our own, right? And if you don't have an extra one, you can at least show them where the coffee maker is and how to use it so that if they do want to do that or have a cup of tea on their own at any time of day, they can do that, right? Some people love to drink coffee all day. And so knowing that they can make their own cup in the afternoon could be really welcome. That same could be true for wine or for your cocktail bar, where they can fix something for themselves on timing that feels good to them without feeling like they're imposing. And I think like in a guest room, creating some space in the closet. Not everyone has a guest room. They might be staying in your children's rooms. And so making sure there's some space for them to put their things allows them to just be able to hang things up, in the closet. I love the idea of a little basket of travel-sized toiletries for anything that they may have forgotten being available to them. So we have a basket that kind of comes in and out and gets replenished when guests are in town that has a handful of those things they might need that are just available for them to have. And I remember years and years ago going to Thanksgiving at my aunt and uncle's house. And that was something my aunt always had and I thought was so cool when I was a kid. And it was something that I picked up from her and have continued to do throughout the years. I think in this era, another one that goes into this self-serve station is, how to access the Wi-Fi and how to work the remote controls. So if there is a TV or, some way to play music in their room, a Bluetooth speaker, anything that they might need to know about how to use those tools would be helpful. So if they have access to a remote control, no one can ever figure out someone else's remote. So a little bit of a user guide. And then again, how to access the Wi-Fi can be very helpful as well. So those self-serve stations are really, again, thinking like your guest who might want to have a little more autonomy during their stay. And actually, it takes some pressure off of you as the host from feeling like you have to always be reading their mind, right? Guests are not always great at telling you what they really want because they're so trying to be polite that it's helpful to kind of think a little bit ahead and give them the ability to take care of their own needs where they need to. And I think the final thing I would want to share about hospitality and really taking some pressure off of yourself as a host is to remember to stay flexible because things will not go perfectly according to your plan, right? You'll have some idea and it won't work out. And how you handle it is really what your guest will remember, how you made them feel. I love, there's a quote by Shauna Niequist that I just love. And she said, when people leave your home, they should feel better about themselves, not better about you. So if you can stay in the mindset that I'm really not here to perform or to be evaluated, but really I'm here to take care of people and help them feel seen and heard and cared for as they leave your home and go back out to their own home. So sending them off with a fresh cup of coffee or bottles of water, or maybe a snack for the road, and thanking them for staying with you is kind of that final ritual that will linger with them. How they felt when they were in your home, and did they feel welcome and like they could settle in and really make it their own for the time that they were there, whether it was just for the day, just for a meal or an occasion, or whether it was for a longer stay. So again, from someone who sort of inherently loves hospitality, it runs pretty deep in my veins. Those are the ideas I wanted to share with you today. And I'd love to hear your best ideas, things that you do or that you have enjoyed when you were a guest in someone's home. And the best place to share those with me is in our Facebook group. So I know a lot of you who listen are members of that already. At Facebook, it's just Brilliant Balance. Go find your way back there and post something that shares an idea that you have for hospitality. Again, either something you've experienced as a guest or something that you always do as a host. And I would love to gather up those ideas as we head into this holiday season. That is all for today, my friends. Till next time, let's be brilliant.
This is thepodcastfactory.com.